I got something really important I'm going to talk about right now, and it's going to be the patriots that are rising up, or the clergy that are rising up. There's a move of God happening in churches. I don't want to beat up on the church. The church is God's bride. What I want to talk to is the leadership in the church has got to wake up and realize you have a stewardship and a responsibility to guide your people in the choices they need to make that will make the world safe for them. We have a man I'm interviewing in this segment who is something called the Black Robe Regiment. Well, actually, this was a term that the British used during the Revolutionary War to describe the clergy that prompted people to enlist for spiritual reasons in the revolution, because there was this idea that the king was suppressing their freedom. And I've got this wonderful section coming up right now with our guest, William Cook, who has like 26 states where pastors are now part of local communities where they're in the political jurisdiction. They're asserting their own vital leadership and influence over their churches to have an influence within the territory that they're in. These are the patriots. And I haven't talked a lot lately about the patriot food supply thing. I want to bring that up now because it made me think about it. Don't get too comfortable with the supply chain food situation that we've got currently, because I'm really concerned that we are so dependent upon the stability of certain systems that if those systems should collapse or be disrupted, what are you going to do for food? If you're living with just a week's worth of food or 2 weeks worth of food in your house, what happens if suddenly it's interrupted? And what are you going to do 30 days from now? What are you going to do 3 weeks from now? By the way, you got children. They're not thinking about the future. You got to think about the future for them. Annabelle and I are constantly stocking up a little bit because we've got a family that we're still thinking they don't think about this. They think the world's going to go on like it always has. But we know shaking is coming. I want you to go to lancewallnau.com/patriot and make the decision to stock up on a 30-day supply. And don't tell me, well, it's expensive. Listen, you're going to go into the Christmas holidays. You're going to go into the Thanksgiving holidays. People are going to spend money on something. Please, peace of mind has a price. Get a 30-day supply of food for yourself and a 30-day supply of food for your extended family and friends, because you just might find yourself needing it. In Florida, where they had that hurricane, they instantly had to take care of themselves. Their food supply was interrupted. It doesn't have to be a national shaking. It could just be a regional one. Happened to us last year in the winter, and it shocked the daylights out of us because it was cold weather in hot Dallas that suddenly took us out for a week or two. LanceWallnau.com/patriot. Do yourself a favor. Do me a favor. Go there and get yourself a 30-day food supply. Do it now. And let's get into the program. One of the hot subjects that we're going to be dealing with on an increasing basis, I'm afraid, is going to be the role of Christianity in politics. We have an awful lot of nervous clergy out there who are worried about, overstepping the bounds of, whatever the boundaries are that are between church and state, and that we really shouldn't be involved with politics. I mean, I'm really hearing some nutty stuff. But I've got a special guest on, Reverend Bill William Cook. He has been not only a minister, but he spent a considerable amount of time, over a decade, working in Boeing and in Booz Allen for government projects such as the CIA and the Department of Homeland Security and Science and Technology divisions and testing systems. So you got some government contract work. Thanks for joining us, Bill. But what really interests me is that in 2012, you heard a conversation on Glenn Beck with David Barton, and it stirred something in you that, entrepreneurially, I'd say maybe the Spirit stirred it up. And that is that whatever happened to the pastors during the founding of the United States that were literate and informed and engaged in the shaping of our revolution to establish our country and our unique values. And there was a group that was called the Black Robe Regiment, but I'll let you tell the story because you're the founder of the Black Robe Regiment. And I want to hear what you're doing and who are the people that you're mobilizing.
Well, the term Black Regiment was the name that some of the British leaders gave to the American clergy. It was a derogatory reference to the black robes that they wore when they preached. They wore full-length Cambridge gowns. And so the British regarded the clergy as responsible for what they call the rebellion, what we call the War for Independence. And they were right. The clergy were principally responsible for the rebellion, what we call the American Revolution. We also call that. And the clergy had made the political worldview in the founding charters just through their preaching. They had made the concepts in the founding charters, in the Declaration of Independence in many ways. They'd made those ideas ubiquitous by the time the American Revolution began, so that Jefferson even said he didn't have to refer to any outside source in writing the Declaration of Independence. He just sat down and wrote it because the ideas were well known. The clergy had made them well known among the people. There's probably a few people that could have written the Declaration of Independence, maybe not with the elegance of Jefferson's quill, but nonetheless, the people knew those ideas. And so when the war began, the people were fully ready for it. And the clergy blamed the pastors for that. And as one writer said, independence.
No. The clergy blamed, but you mean the British blamed the clergy for that?
I meant the British, right?
Yeah,
the British.
Because this is news to me. Look, I'm getting my journal out. This is a sign that I'm having a good interview when I start to write down stuff and I'm learning stuff from the people I'm interviewing. So I did not know. And of course, we have David Barton, great historian. Glenn Beck, stirs up, people the way he talks. But Barton, is this your source that Barton says that the British felt that the American clergy were primary forces behind the rebellion and that they were stirring it up?
They were considered by the British to be chief agitators of the rebellion.
Chief agitators.
And, the Presbyterians in particular were very involved, and the Presbyterian ministers. In fact, Horace Walpole, a British parliamentarian, when he was commenting about the American War for Independence and the rebellion of the colonies, said to his colleagues, "There's no use in crying about the matter. Cousin America has run off with a Presbyterian parson," speaking of Whitefield.
Oh.
George Whitefield.
Well, okay, so Whitefield was before the Revolutionary War, but he certainly divided the church away from the Church of England and a lot of the high church influence. So the Black Robe Regiment really was the British description of what they saw as the clergy mobilized patriots. Is that it, or was it the clergy themselves?
Correct. Yeah, in fact, one of the most interesting stories of the American Revolution has to do with a pastor in Lexington named Jonas Clark. He was the pastor of the Church of Christ in Lexington. And the night that Paul Revere galloped into town to notify the people of Lexington that the British were coming by land, he went to the parsonage of Jonas Clark. He knocked on the door about midnight, and Clark answered. And staying with Clark that night were John Hancock and Samuel Adams, who came down, who awoke when the household was woken up by Revere. And when they heard the news that the British were coming, and oh, by the way, the British had orders not to return from this mission without Hancock and Sam Adams, in stocks. And so when he reported that news, one of the two future founding fathers turned to Jonas Clark, the pastor, and said, "Sir, will your people fight?" And the pastor responded, "I have prepared them for this very hour." And indeed he had, because Jonas Clark had actually helped to train the militia in Lexington, the people we call the Minutemen. And Clark was probably considered the most powerful politician in the region of Lexington and Concord. He had written all the significant state papers for government for that region. And the clergy of that era were really statesmen. They understood the foundations of liberty and the principles that make for freedom. And they were very vocal about it.
Wow. And I feel always as though I'm rediscovering something which I wasn't taught and which I'd learned earlier. Because certainly Thomas Paine and these writers, they didn't have media, they didn't have YouTube, right? So they would read pamphlets. So they were a far more literate society than we are today by percentage of people that could read. The town hall was the church. The church and the town hall were the two places where the community congregated. That's where we get the word congregation. And so current events were really tied into the pulpit, and in a sense, God's perspective was constantly infused in the culture of the conversation, and it shaped those documents. Aren't you a little bit surprised that there's such a backlash against the very idea that Christianity is part of the American culture and its founding? I mean, I listen to people who are aghast at the idea that Christian influences ever shaped America, and they want to separate the Bible from the founding. But I think that there's more evidence that this was a biblically literate group of founders than there is that they were, heathen.
Yeah, I agree. America, if you look at this from the perspective of a biblical worldview, the principles of liberty and the principles in the Bible, you have to believe that one of the principles of Scripture is that there's two kinds of people in the world since the resurrection of Jesus Christ. There's the children of disobedience, that is, those who are born of the first Adam, who are born dead because they're born of Adam who sinned. And then there's the children of God who are born again or regenerate. And the Scripture tells us that the children of disobedience their actions and motives are governed by the prince of the power of the air, who comes to steal, kill, and destroy. The children of God are governed. They're also called the children of light. And it's my belief that only the children of God, only those who are born of God, are capable of understanding what liberty really means, and of doing what is necessary to secure it. So America could not have been founded as anything other than a predominantly Christian nation. In fact, I would say America would have been possible before the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ and the new birth, because unbelievers could not have founded this nation.
Right. Okay. So real quick, so you're doing these chapters now. You're getting Black Robe regiments around the country, which is really pastors in every political jurisdiction of America joining together. So how many clergy do you have that are rising up with this nostalgic rekindling of the role of clergy in the pulpit of the revolution?
I don't know exactly how many, but we are now I'd say we're now in about 26 states, and we're pursuing a vision of having a chapter within every state by the year 2024. And beyond that, we want this organization to establish chapters all the way down to the precinct level in school districts, in counties, because the church has got to be at the forefront of government. If we're not going to have liberty. And so that's what we're striving for. And we're starting to see chapters rise. And we just did a webinar yesterday. We call them pastors huddles. We had leaders from 4 different states that were reporting in. It was North Dakota, of all places, New Hampshire, Michigan, and we have one now in Maryland and North Carolina.
Wow.
And other states.
Well, Bill Cook, how do they get in touch with you? How do they stay in touch with you? Give us some contact information so that we could know more about what's going on.
Sure. The best email to reach me at is blackroberev@leader.com. And they can go to our website at abrr.us. And one thing I would point people to is the Gideon's 300 pledge that's up on our website. We're asking pastors to sign that virtually, which is a pledge to do the things that are necessary to secure the blessings of liberty in this country. We could go on about that for a while, but we just had over 150 pastors sign that in Virginia Beach at the Gideon's 300 summit we did down there. So that's another thing they can find.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. I'll tell you what, I do want to talk to you about that. We're going to have you back on again. And so, Bill Cook, thank you so much. Make sure you sign up, folks, on what's going on with this Black Robe Regiment. I think that it's going to require a lot of pastors to catch the vision of how to lead in culture and to break the fear of engaging culture. I mean, it's amazing what we're up against in America. We developed a coward's spine rather than a leader's, bent, and that's got to change. But Bill Cook, you're doing the right stuff, and I want to talk to you while we take a break right now, and we'll be back in a second. God bless. I only want to give my business to you. I don't want to give it to a woke corporation. I don't want to give it to some big guy that's going to be using my money against me. That day is over, folks. You can now go to Public Square. Go to lancewallnau.com/Public Square and find the businesses that are patriot businesses, that are faith-filled businesses, and put your business on the map so we can start doing business with you. lancewallnau.com/Public Square. Welcome back. I have something I want to share with you. You know, after I got done with the interview with William Cook, I went over to his website because I wanted to see this thing he's got, which is a Gideon's Pledge. He's got like 6 states, pastors signed up, and I did a webinar with a number of them, and I thought this is so great to get patriot pastors together. I mean, there's a whole bunch of groups talking, but, get your pastor in a conversation with people that share the values you're hearing here. About, hey, man, figure out how to engage culture. Figure out how not to be a coward. Don't be woke. Be awake. And but they have to talk to other pastors and be in conversation. So anyway, I looked up the Gideon's Pledge. Write this down. Grab a pen right now. Grab a pen. Grab your phone. Write down ABRR.US. I guess it's the American Black Robe Regiment.US. ABRR.US. And if you want to, /Gideon's Pledge. They're looking for 300 pastors to be like an army of Gideons. Gideon's Pledge. It's a Gideon's 300. Says here, understand that liberty is sacred and the gift of God. That liberty being sacred is the church's sacred trust. That the church, as the light of the world, is the sole curator, trustee, or steward of the society and keeper of the blessings of liberty. So they have a certain logic about the role of the church in preserving liberty, and that the temporal well-being of your flock is as much your concern as their eternal well-being. That makes sense. That, the economic and safe conditions of your church, your flock, your family should concern you as much as the gospel. Did Jesus heal the sick and cast out demons? Most of his ministry was spent on the temporal affairs of the suffering. So anyway, he's got a pledge made up of like 6 points. I'm no longer going to divorce my role as pastor from matters that have a direct bearing on my people's welfare. I will preach the whole counsel of God with a one election sermon prior to every election. I'm going to give a biblical worldview to my flock. I'm going to make sure that my flock is voting in every election. I'm going to provide ample opportunities for every member of voting age to register. And I'm going to partner with other pastors in my local community to maintain a culture of liberty within the local church, within our own communities. So help me God. A reasonable pledge, just 6 points. I think any reasonable pastor should be able to do that. That's the equivalent of a Black Robe Regiment for today. The Black Robe Regiment now. Remember what the founding fathers did, these wealthy merchants? This is what I do. I get the business guys together. And I want them to pledge their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to securing liberty and to honoring God in culture. And I think we've got a new generation that's rising up. Oh, I know there's some pastors that won't listen to you if you're not a tithing, committed member. So don't go annoying them with your Gideon's Pledge if you're not committed to them. But brother and sister, if you're a businessman or a woman, if you're a tither, if you're a giver, if you're somebody that's an intercessor who your pastor respects, you have a relationship with him, his wife, his family, send this to him and let him know that this is a legitimate fellowship of pastors that are learning more about how to stand together, stand strong. We have every month, and I'm on a couple of them, we do these webinars, we do these private calls, people ask questions, I give them answers. You don't want to miss it. And by the way, you also don't want to miss LanceWallnau.com, Talking Trump.
From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
I miss that guy so much. He annoys people. It's like, dear Lord, it's like holy water to someone that needs an exorcism. He just talks and people start manifesting. But I think he's the tonic we need. Go to lancewallnau.com /Talking Trump It makes great Christmas gifts. All right, I love you all. See you again next episode.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.